Hello and welcome to the AX Semantics webinar. Today we will talk about e-commerce descriptions, product descriptions. My name is Vitaliia and I'm a computational linguist here at AX Semantics. But perhaps you can write me whether you can hear me well and whether you can also see my screen. Please write me just in chat whether the audio is okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, then let's start. So, as I said, today we will talk about e-commerce product descriptions, and I will show you a sample project that we created here internally, and you can use the things that we used there also for your projects. So what you will learn today, first of all, how to combine the data, to analyze the data, and to create statements with the data. We will go through all the statements one by one. So for you to see how we implemented here, I will show you what we used to achieve high variance for the product descriptions. And we will also look at the different story types. So different stories, how you can arrange them to get different outputs, also with different formatting. So let me change to the project. I will show you first of all how the text look like. So here under the results, you can see the generated text. In our collection, we have only 12 objects, but you can use this project for as many, in this case, smartphones, as you want to generate product descriptions, or as many as you have data for. So you have, you can see here different texts. I will generate it a few times for you to see how, with every generation, how the text changes. So you see here also different formatting. Okay, and let's get down to the creation actually of the project for you to see how we did that. And first of all, the first step that we need to do to start with the project is to analyze the data. So first of all, we need structured data, and the first step will be to analyze it. We have a special tab here, Analyze tab. So you can analyze your data, clicking on Analyze Now, and you can arrange your data to and let it show by name. For example, if you are looking for a specific data field, or you can let it show by occurrences. It's important, for example, if you are looking at the values and how good data fields are filled with the values. For example, to estimate for what data field or for what information you can create a statement, or for what perhaps it doesn't worth to put an effort because it appears perhaps only for one product. But as I said here, you can arrange and look at the data fields by occurrences, and you can see how many products have the values for the data fields. After we analyze the data, after we saw what information we have and what statements we can create, we can change to the write mode and actually create statements. We will not look very much today into the transform mode. It's the tab where you create logics for different outputs, where you create also phrases and so different logical conditions and also data nodes to output the data. We will concentrate today more on the write mode and on the statements themselves. So we will go statement through statement, and I will show you how they are implemented and what logic they have when they appear, and how the data, different data fields are combined in the same statement. So we are here in the first story, and in the both stories we use almost the same statements. So let's start with the first one. First of all, we have a title where the product type, name, and color will appear. It's a simple statement. It just outputs us the value that we have in the data. Then we have the introduction sentence. So here you see we have two different variants. In this case, the variants are implemented with the help of branches. So we have two branches here, and the machine chooses randomly one or the other branch with every generation. It's essential to put more effort in introduction sentence because it's something that appears in the beginning of the text, and it's something that the person who reads the text sees at first. Here, the variance is very important, but also the information that we mention here is also important for the customer who, or for the person who reads that product description. So what we did here, here we just mentioned the name of the product. We use here also a few synonyms. They are also implemented with the help of branches. So as you see, we can use branches to create different variants of the same statement, but we can also use branches to increase the variance and to create synonyms in this case. So for the verb amaze here, some other synonyms like convince and impress will also appear with every generation. And it's also the case here, the machine chooses randomly one of the synonyms. And then you see here a container with different features that we summarized here. So we created a group, and the best features that a smartphone can have, we combined here. So we created a logic in the transform mode and such features as, for example, top cameras. So we created logic for cameras. It can be front camera or back camera. And if they have, in our case, more than 13 megapixel, they are considered to be top cameras. You can create different logical conditions here. In our case, as I said, these are 13 megapixel, but you can change also this logic in the transform mode. And for example, if in the future these cameras are a little bit outdated, so to say, you can also change that condition, and they perhaps cameras with more megapixel will be considered top. So you can always change that. Such feature also as a waterproof technology is also, we also put it here in this group. A powerful processor, for example, if it has, so if it's a octa-core processor here is considered to be powerful. So if a smartphone has an octa-core processor, it will be also mentioned here in this group. What do we have else? We have also so depend on what operating system it has also different phrases for different operating systems. So overall perfect Android user experience, or for example, a very popular iOS. If it's yes, if it's produced by Apple. And some other features, as for example, an incredible battery life, if it's or massive battery capacity. What do we have? If it has, for example, a very good display type. So in this case, we consider AMOLED display as a fantastic display. So also the appropriate phrase will appear in this case. If, for example, the storage is very big, a phrase like unlimited photo storage will appear in this group. And we do not output all of them, but we also put a limit here. So only 4 phrases will appear randomly in this group. So you can do it here in the settings of the container, just to output 4 random phrases or 4 random elements from the group. So it was our introduction sentence, where the all the important or all the best features of the smartphones are summarized, and they appear in the beginning of the text. In our story 1, we have different features described, and we have them with titles. So the title appears in the beginning, and then a small description of the mentioned features are described with the statements. Let me get down once again, go to results to show it once again. So you see here that we have the title, we have the introduction sentence, and then we have titles or headlines for different, I can say features, but some different information that we can mention in the text about smartphones. So display, this size, so dimensions of the smartphone, the security, so different features, how you can unlock your phone, protection, cameras, performance. So these are this is the information that we mentioned here, and we put the headline for every of these features. So you see here we have the title for a display. It's just the general information that will appear here. It's just the data field will be mentioned. But in the beginning, we have a phrase for every type of the display type. We created a phrase that will appear here. So for a super AMOLED display, high contrast ratio will appear, but there you can create even more phrases for every type of the display, and the machine will choose them randomly. Let me see and change to some other type. Okay, it's the same. Okay, if it's IPS LCD display, then a different phrase will appear for that type of the display, as you can see here in the title. And then we have here a few sentences, 2 sentences that will appear under this title. The first one is a display description. So we have the name of the smartphone. We have 2 different synonyms. Then we have the phrase here that has a logical condition. The most advanced will appear only if it is a mode display, and we put the trigger for this phrase. So it will appear only in the case if the display has this type. In other cases, it will be omitted in the sentence. If it's not the case, so if it's not the most advanced display, then we need an article here. So the article, an indefinite article will appear. So we have also a condition for that. So it will appear, as I said, if it's not the case, if it's not the most advanced display. Then we have a container that outputs the display size. We have inches for that. Then we have the container with the display type. We have the container with the resolution. Then we have two branches, also with the phrases. A very sharp image. It will appear, this phrase will appear because you see here we have also a trigger. In this case, it's false. It will not appear for this smartphone. We defined a logic when the image is sharp. So we created in transform mode a logic that combines different types of resolution, and the best of them when the image is really very good. So only for these a few resolutions, this phrase will appear in the text. And if it's the case, so if it's there, so if it's the image is very sharp, so if this phrase appears in the text, then we need also a conjunction. So then it will also appear with the phrase. And from the last container, a phrase that describes the display type will appear. So you see here we have a container with the display phrases. It's like also the same as we created for the title, for the heading. Different phrases will appear for different display types. So here we have only one branch. To increase the variance, you can create even more here. And under this heading, one more sentence will appear. If it's the case for the smartphone, it's a sentence that describes Gorilla Glass. So if it's there in the data, we have also the trigger for that sentence. You see it here. So trigger Gorilla Glass. If it's there in the data, then this sentence will also appear under the heading. And we have here 3 branches, so the machine chooses one of them and outputs what time. Here we have one container, and the value from the data, what type of the display glass, what type of Gorilla Glass it is, will appear from this container. So the next paragraph with the heading dimension will output this statement. So a few information are summarized here. So here, dependent on what size, so what dimension the smartphone has, we can say whether it's big in size, small in size, or average in size. Will appear here. Whether it's slim will also appear, and whether it's light. So if it weighs less than, in our case, 140 grams, then we consider it light. And if it if it's not, so if it's slim, then also the phrase, the word slim will appear in the heading. And dependent on what size it has, there will be appropriate phrases will also appear here. Here under this title, we have a few sentences. So the first one, the first statement describes the dimensions of the smartphone, and then we have for every all the phrases, so of every of whether it's small, average, or big, different sentences will appear after this, so to say, introduction sentence. So the dimensions will be described at first, and then the sentence for a small, or a sentence for average, or a sentence for big smartphone will appear in the text. You see that for this smartphone, it's the sentence dimensions big is true. You can see it on this trigger. It's green here. So this sentence will appear, and both other are false. So you should define these ranges for the small, average, and big very exact. So so that only one from this sentence will appear for the smartphone. So let's have a look at the first one statement. So the dimensions of the phones. Here we have two branches. The phrases, whether it's small, average in size, and big, we implemented with the help of branches, and we put a trigger for every of these phrases. So you see that every word for every word or phrase we define the trigger. The next, whether it's slim, we have also a trigger. So it will not always appear in the sentence. It's only the case if it's true for a smartphone. And here, as next, we have the dimensions. So it's something that we have just in the data. So it comes from the data. If we have also the weight, it's not the case for all the smartphones. So for some of them, the weight value is not there in the data. So we implemented it here also with the branches. And it weights will appear in the text only if we have weight also in the data. The next branch, only, so the word only will appear in the case if smartphone weighs less than 140 grams in our case, and then the container with the value from the data will appear. In the second branch here, we use the same information. The structure is a little bit different. So in the first case, we started with the dimensions of this small or average in size or big smartphone are. And in the second branch, we started with the subject. So we say the smartphone is small, average, big in size. And then we mention what exactly dimensions it has, and then also the weight as I said, if it's available in the data. And then one of the sentences for a small, average, or big smartphone will appear. So you see here we have more branches. Some of them, to increase the variance, we also added synonyms, but you can also add it to increase the variance. It's always good to add a few more synonyms. So for example, for also the other branches, it's good to have there also a few synonyms. So there is nothing complicated about these three sentences. It's just that we defined a trigger here, created different branches, add a little bit of variance with the help of synonyms, and it's actually all that we did here. The next paragraph is secure authentication. In this statement, we put together such identification features as fingerprint sensor, Face ID, and iris recognition. So all of them, if they are available in the data, will be mentioned here in this paragraph. So the title is general. It's just said if one of these features is available, so one of the variants here will appear in the sentence. And then we have again two sentences. The same, so we split it here in two sentences. The first one is just like an introduction sentence. For a secure authentication, so it just says if you do not need to remember passwords and type them in for a long time, and then we have semicolon here, and then we have like more information about that. So we mention here what exactly it is. So we have it will be mentioned what exactly of this feature. So what feature exactly we have. In this case, it's a fingerprint sensor. But if we have more of them, also the other will appear. So as I said, we have three of them. And all of these elements will appear in this group. So, and that's it actually with this paragraph. The next one we have about protection. So if there is anything in the data for the protection, whether it's a waterproof, so there are different types of protections. And for example, for this smartphone, it's IP68. And for different of these types of protection, we created also different phrases. So here we have also two sentences. The first one is also like an introduction sentence. You see that we do not, because if you have only one sentence in the paragraph, it does not look very good. So if we mention, for example, in the paragraph, one feature, it's good to have at least two sentences there, because in other case, it does not look that good in the text. So we have also an introduction sentence for a protection. And then we have more specific sentence with the value from the data, what kind of protection it is, and the phrase. As I said, we created different phrases for different types of protection. In the next paragraph, we talk about cameras. In the heading, we have a few different variants. So you see that they will appear randomly, but we have special triggers for all of them. So the first one has a trigger great cameras. I mentioned before that we defined it like if the camera has more than 13 megapixels, then it is considered to be a great camera. So it's the trigger for this branch, great camera. Okay. And for superior selfies, this headline will appear if the front camera has more than 13 megapixels. And here we have no trigger, so we will, dependent on what we have in the data, front and main, if we have both of the cameras, then front and main cameras available will appear in the heading. Or if we have only one of them, then, for example, front or main camera available will appear in the heading. And you see here we have two containers. In the first one, we have a group with these two cameras. And in the second container is actually a grammar container. So if we have only one camera, then we have the word here in singular, and if we have both of them, they will appear in plural. So from this container, as an output, we have camera or cameras. So such grammatical information we can also implement with the machine. And then we have a few sentences for this paragraph. So we have the sentence for main camera. We have the sentence for the video quality of the main camera. We have some special features. And then we have also sentence for a front camera. You see that here we have two branches and a few also synonyms. So that's why it looks a little bit more complicated. So for a verb here, we have a few synonyms. Then we have two branches for great camera or just normal camera. So you can take good, nice photos if it's just if the smartphone has camera. And you have one more branch with synonyms for the case if it's a top camera. So we have for both of them, we have also trigger. We have synonyms here for photos or pictures. And here we have just information from the data. And here you see in the second branch the same information is mentioned, but the structure of the sentence is different. In the statement main camera video, only the information about the quality of the video is mentioned, so it's pretty simple. And in the next sentence, we put together in a group different special features that the camera can have. So in our case, for this smartphone, it's not it's false, so it does not have any special features. But let me see what features we combined here in this group. So it's an, for example, if we have in the data optical image stabilization, or for example slow motion, or what else can we consider as a special feature, or automatic scene optimization, for example. All of these special features we put together in the group, and if they are there in the data, all of them will appear, because it's only 3 of them, I think, so it's not that much. If you have more in the data, and if you put more in the group, then it makes perhaps sense to set a limit here and appear, for example, only 4 of them, or I think not that much, because of the sentence will be like too much information in one sentence. And you see here we have okay, I will try to find here an example with special features. Let me see. So you see for Samsung Galaxy A50, this sentence will appear. So you see how the output will look like. And in the second branch, we used grammar container once again. So if we have here the list of different features, and if there are a few of them, so more than one, then this verb that follows should be used in singular. And if, as I said, if we have a few elements, if we have a few phrases, a few special features, then this verb will be used in plural. Okay, the next sentence, front camera. We have 3 branches here. We have one branch. So in the first container, we just mentioned the information from the data. So the value that is there in the data for the front camera will appear. Then we have a branch with a trigger. If it's a great camera, front camera, then one of the synonyms will appear here. So one of the adjectives that describe the camera will appear. In other case, nothing will appear here. So we will have the sentence like on the front for nice selfies. So if it's not true, then an adjective nice will appear, nice selfies and video chats. And all the other branches, they are also created, as I said, only the structure is different, the same information, the synonyms are here also pretty the same, so there is nothing special in the other branches. As I said, the same information, but the structure should be different, and especially the beginning of the sentence should differ. You see here the sentences appear, the sentences have different beginnings. The next paragraph is about performance. You see that we have a few branches here. One of them will appear in the heading, and all of them have their special triggers. Okay, here's something wrong. Yeah, the trigger it's not correct here, should correct it. So the triggers here should be connected with the processor of the smartphone, and in the first case, in the second case, the battery capacity is mentioned. So if the battery capacity is more than 4,900, then it's considered like great or massive battery capacity, and also the fast charge time will appear if it's there in the data from this branch, fast charging or fast battery charge time. Here we have operational experience. It's dependent. The next two branches we created specially. So we have here whether the Android operating system or iOS operating system. And for both of them, we created different branches. So you see here, we have as an operating system Android and iOS operating system. So, and here you can see it, the description of all these features are here in the sentences. So we have one sentence for operating system. We just mentioned here the name of the smartphone, the operating system is what we have in the data, and then we have here from Google if it's so we let Google appear in the sentence if it's Android is in the data field, or we have from, let me see, how is it implemented here? So if we have Google in the, if we have Android in the data field operating system, then from Google will appear. And if we have iOS in the data field operating system, then from Apple will appear in the from the container. So from Google or from Apple. Okay, internal memory. Internal memory is a little bit more complicated. You see that there are different more branches here. A few just for variants, for synonyms, and a few that have also trigger, whether it's a standard or if it's extensive. So the information is there in the data. So if it can be extended with an expandable, in our case, micro CD card, then it's mentioned here. And if it's the case, then special phrases will appear here. So if it has a big storage, then the following phrases will appear in the sentence. In our case, we put as a logical condition for that 32 gigabyte. So if it's more than 32 gigabyte, then we consider that the internal memory is big. Okay, we have one more sentence for processor here. We have the information that is there in the data. So if it's octa-core processor, in our case, it will just appear here from the container. But we have also an adjective for that. and we put a trigger here. So if it's octa-core processor, then the word powerful will appear. In other case, just the information from the data will be mentioned here in the statement. In the next branch, you see we have here 2 branches, and if it has a high working speed and outstanding performance for operating and running, so we have a trigger here. If it's octa-core processor, this branch will appear. If it's not the case, then the next branch will appear. So you can also define whether you want to appear the first true branch for in your data, and if it's not the case, then the next true branch will appear. So it's here is it possible to define different mode, random and the first. Random will choose one true branch, so the branch with a true trigger. And if you choose here as a mode first, then the first from your list, so the first true branch that you create here will appear. One moment, please. Excuse me for a moment. What do we have here? Sorry, my laptop is right now a little bit slow. Let me just load the page once again. Okay, what is the problem there? I'm really sorry. Just let's see whether it will be loaded now. Okay. Okay, it seems like I have a little bit not that good internet connection. Okay, I hope it will be connected so we can look through the rest of the statements here in the project. Or I will try it once again just to go into the software and to log in once again. Perhaps it will work. Okay, it's really weird, but let us wait just a little bit. Perhaps it will work. Okay. Okay, what do we have? Okay, so at what statement? Okay, processor, we looked through that, and the next statement was battery life. So we have a container here for built-in battery. So this container, this information will appear only if we have battery feature there. It can be built in or some other kind of the battery, for example, exchangeable. In this case, for these smartphones, we have the built-in battery. If the information is not there, it will just not mention, the sentence will still appear in the text. Then we have two branches for a massive, so for a good battery capacity, or if it's like massive, then a big, then this branch will appear. We have for every of them, we have also a trigger. If it's not a case, it's just good, then a good battery capacity will appear. Then we have a container with the information from the data, so the value that will appear with the battery capacity. And then we have one branch with the information, whether it's good or very good, then this branch will appear. If it's not the case, if it's not very good, so to say, battery capacity, then the sentence will end here. In other case, if it's good or very good, then the branch will appear here to the end, so it has a trigger also here, and we will have in the sentence something like provides a long time. If it has, is very good, or just enough time for a good battery capacity without recharging. We defined also different triggers for that. So for very good, it has to be more than 4,900, a good between 4,900 and so less than 4,900 and more than 1,400. But as I said, these values changes, and if the in the near future these values are perhaps a little bit outdated, then you have to adjust that in the transform mode for these logical conditions. The next sentence is about fast charging time. So we have the data field, fast charging time, yes or no. And if it's the case, then this statement will appear, and we have here random mode. So one of the branches will appear in the in this text. I get a few questions here, but I will answer them after I will go through the through the statements, if it's okay for you. Okay, so much as to the charging time, fast charging. Then we have the next paragraph is about SIM cards. So if we have multiple SIM cards, then this paragraph will appear, and also the value from the data. So if it has only one SIM card, the sentence will not appear. It's relevant only for multiple SIM cards. And you see here, as a statement, as a sentence, the information will be mentioned, and then with in this case, for example, dual SIM, and but this information comes directly from the data, so it's just the value that will appear here in the container. But here at the end, we interpreted it, and it will appear from the lookup table. So if it's a dual SIM, then 2 will appear here. If it's a triple SIM, if there are such, then 3 will appear here. So this output is interpreted in the lookup table. And that's it. I think it's the first, what do we have here? Something? No. So it's the last sentence that will appear in the text, the last paragraph. And you see that, as I said, in the first story, we arrange it in such a way that we let the introduction sentence with the summarization of the best features will appear in the beginning. Then we have the titles for different features or for different information, and then a few of the sentences will appear under every of the headings. In the second, let me change to the second story. So it's done a little bit differently. So we use the same sentences here. We have the title, we have the introduction is arranged the same. And then we do not use headings here. We just use all the statements that we have created here. If I change here to the story planner, then you can see it perhaps better. So all the titles are not put into this story. So we just have all the sentences listed here. But what is different, or some additional information that we have in the story type is this last sentence summarization. So if I go back to the write mode, then we can have a look at this sentence. Sorry, I have really some problems today with my internet connections. I do not get that good internet connections. So story 2, let's get down to the last sentence. And here we created a group and features that we mentioned in the text will be summarized there. So we have the display size. You see it here. We have the display type here. So we have the container with all the information. It is summarized in a group, and if it's there in the data, all this information will be outputted as a unordered list. So as a bullet point list, it will be mentioned in the end of the text. So you see here, it should begin with a new line. So after the block, all the text with all the statements, we get, I can say it's a heading. We just, you see, we put here as a markdown 2 stars. It means that it will appear bold in the text. So Samsung Galaxy A50 in our class, in our case, at a glance. And then the list, the bullet point list with the information of different technical features that the smartphone has will appear. Let me show you once again how it will look in the text. So here is the first story with different paragraphs and headings. And here, if I generate it once again, you see we have a block with all the sentences, and here the summary. Okay, that's it. I think it's everything that I wanted to show you and to guide you through this project and to show you how we implement it here. You can also use it in some of the things you can use also in your projects. For example, different formatting here, or some different combination of the data, and how you can implement it with branches and different triggers and modes for the output of the branches in the text. If you have any questions, you can write it now in the questions and answers. I've got already one question. Let me read it for you. So, ich habe eine Frage, it's in German, so I will read it also in German. Ich habe eine Frage, kann ich einen Branch auch so anlegen, dass er nicht nur eine Phrase 1:1 austauscht, sondern auch einen Teil der Phrase an einer anderen Stelle in Statement einfügt? Beispiel AX Semantics. Präsentiert ihr die NLG Cloud und ich möchte präsentiert durch Vorstellen ersetzen. AX Semantics stellt Ihnen die NLG Cloud vor. So if it's, for German, it's relevant. For example, if we have the verb with a particle that we use at the end of the sentence, in this case, it's not impossible, sorry. So the machine cannot recognize that. So if you use this synonym, in this case, präsentiert and stellt vor, it should be used in the same branch. So you cannot divide it and put one part of the verb in the beginning and then this particle for at the end, the machine will not recognize it. So if you have these different branches and there is a mode random there, the machine will just choose randomly it. So it will, it can be used like that. Any other questions? How long or how many hours or days it will take you to make such project from the scratch? I mean, how long it will take you to create such semantic project from very beginning? You can calculate it like that. So it depends on the data, how complicated the data is. So what information you want to appear in the text, how complicated the logic is. But I will calculate 2 hours for one sentence, perhaps with implementing plus 2 hours. So with analyzing the data, with creating the statement, and with creating logical conditions, it's approximately 3-4 hours for one statement. But you saw that the level, how complicated the sentences are, is different. Sometimes you just have a sentence without not that much logic in the statement, then it will take less. But if it's more complicated, that it will take up to 4 hours for one statement to implement. Any other questions? Let's just wait a few seconds for, in case we have more questions. Yes, sure. You will also get, it will be recorded. This webinar will be recorded, and you can watch it once again if you think it's helpful for you. In our support link, I think you have the link to our support, and under the videos and webinars, we will put it there. Okay, if there are no more any questions, then I would like to thank you for your time, and we will see. We will meet in the next webinars from AX Semantics. Thank you very much. Bye.